is the second fucking time I've done that. I mean, the first time I missed in the last zig. I cannot stop red flaming that fucking act. Fuck, that sucks. Oh, boy. Nice. Yet again. Look, my stupid ass muscle memory is broken as shit. This is just fucking ridiculous. How am I still doing this? Oh man, this is rough. Bummer. That wasn't enough. Though if I would have hit that and then overstrummed afterward, I would have jumped off a fucking bridge. Oh my god, it's fucking over! Fuck yes! God! Ugh! What an incredibly, oh my god, what an indescribably frustrating experience this was. I've been going for this for like 2 fucking weeks. On and off, of course, because I just could not brute force my way through this one. So before I get into the utter frustration this was, if you don't know, in quick play, at least in these harmonics titles, it assigns a character and venue for each song. And I just want to say how fucked up it is that Harmonix chose Nilbog High, the high school venue for this song. Like, they knew what they were doing. Weird. Yeah. Good job, guys. As an extension of that, I'm sure I'm on a watch list somewhere for playing this song way too many fucking times. They probably very justifiably have a, radar out for this specific song's frequency, and wherever it's being played the most is probably an area of suspect. But anyway, enough of the corny asides. This is the kind of situation that I was so afraid of in, like, picking up another game. Running into some shit like this where it's like, I can probably do this, and going for the next 1,000, like, I just can't fucking stop myself. Just like a moth to a flame, slowly burning my life away on this shit, but it's just so tempting for some reason. But yeah, this is definitely my best score in this game, and God, I hope that stays this case, because I do not want to find something else like this that I feel like I have to go for. The only other thing right now that I can see turning into this kind of situation is if I, God forbid, decide to go for Electric Eye for 39k, but that's a thought for a different decade. Yeah, this was so fucking brutal. And honestly, I was in disbelief when I hit that last act. I am very surprised this came together without, like, at the very least, double-digit last act chokes. Or, everything surrounding it. And I don't even know, I might have gotten to that point, including the whammy. But my god, I am so fucking relieved this is done. It's just one of those shitty things, like I said in Play With Me, I've been bouncing around a lot on the set list, and that does help, mentally dealing with these things. I didn't get this score I was looking for, let me go try something else or learn something else. That's a good way to get your mind off it. But while in some ways it is helpful and healthy, I'm sure, in another way, it really is just running from your problems. Because, these dark clouds are always going to be hanging over you when you do that. You know that you have to face this monster eventually if it's something that you really want. So for all intents and purposes, for human execution, this is pretty much optimal. The upper bound last act from TAS was possible. It was frame perfect and required that buffered whammy mechanic. I cannot even imagine trying to time that front end frame perfectly. And even still, the buffered whammy mechanic, just because you get the buffered whammy doesn't mean that you get frame perfect star power from it. You still have to fret it frame perfectly, and then of course trying to optimize that back end afterward. The nearly ideal act was insane enough execution, and this was a 5-frame window from that TAS. I can't even imagine going for like a 3-frame window under these conditions. Frame perfect, that is just, I don't think that will ever happen. But yeah, that last act is just so ridiculous because, like I was just saying, the front end execution is terrible. The back end execution is incredibly hard to push and time properly under that pressure. And just the whammy for it, getting that buffered whammy is such an awkward execution, and under the nerves of being post 4th act, I basically gave up on it for a while because I was just like, there's just no way I'm going to be able to execute this under nerves. But after like 2 or 3 of those last act chokes trying traditional whammy, I just realized that I just was not gonna have the star power I needed for it. And I had already put so much practice into this on dead runs. And, that's the other thing that sucks about this execution is that you can't, like, practice it in practice mode because there's no, like, visual indication aside from the lighting up blue sustain that tells you if you did it properly. So you have to just do it in runs. And, that goes for everything star power related, of course. It's just this is to the next level of that. And as crazy as it is, wrapping all that together, I think the last act actually gave me the least amount of overall trouble with the 3 difficult acts. So the timeline of how this whole process went, I initially was not struggling super hard with the solo 1 act. I was hitting it, not like consistently by any means, but I was getting it enough to where like I obviously believed that I could do this. But that 4th act just stonewalled me for the longest time because I just could not stop red flaming the front end. Like clockwork, like 99% of the time that I got there in either post-act 3 runs or even just dead runs, I just could not execute that 4th act front end properly. And it was weird too because my first activation spot was on the red-yellow chord after the single red strum, and that fretting execution is very comfortable for me at this point, which is why I picked it, obviously. But watching the runs back, normally when I'm red flaming acts, it's because I activate and fret on the same frame, but most of the time it seemed like I was activating a frame after fretting, and at that point I was like, man, I am so far away from being able to execute this properly. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. So yeah, for some reason I just could not do that execution, so I tried to change it to activating on the red-blue behind that red-yellow that I was using initially, and the reason for that is because the note behind it, the dynamic hit window is so much bigger because there's a break, so I figured it would allow me to focus a lot more on the front end because I get to hit the following note much later. And while that did seem to help a little bit, like most of the time I was just red flaming it by activating and fretting on the same frame at least, overall it just would not budge. I just could not get my stupid fucking hands to execute properly. So finally I changed to this execution that I'm doing now, and that is not an execution that I was looking forward to doing or that I've really had much of any success with in the past. I pretty much always prefer to use the higher note to activate extended hit window. The previous fretting pattern is like a little hand tangly for like setting up a heavy extended hit window front end. It just seemed really awkward and not favorable for me to have success with it. And while it did take me quite a bit to finally start seeing success with it, it was just so much better than the other acts. And I'm not sure if I said this before, but I'm almost positive it had to do with the fact that I didn't need to be strumming the notes ahead of the front end. So thankfully, even though it was a very unlikely solution, I did find a way to get somewhat consistent with that 4th act. But it never stopped giving me problems, like not even close. Today is the only day, I've been at this for about 2 hours, where I didn't have a single red flame on it. I did have a miss from strumming it late or fretting it too late in the extended hit window execution, but yeah, I did not red flame it at all today, thankfully. But yeah, on previous days, like, I would red flame it like half the time I got past the 3rd act, or even in just dead runs where I didn't hit the 3rd act for practice. So yeah, that act, regardless of the fairly lenient frame data, was just fucking awful to try to get consistent with. And that brings us to Act 3. Pretty much immediately after I got somewhat, again, like coin flip consistency out of the 4th act front end, the 3rd act just completely stonewalled me, just like the 4th act did previously. I wasn't using the execution that I'm doing now. I'm sure I'll show many of those reverse 374K chokes on that front end. But yeah, I wasn't preemptively anchoring green. I don't remember if I even knew about the extended hit window mechanic change that allows you to do that in this game by that point. But yeah, basically, I just was completely unable to not red flame that front end. And again, it was so fucking frustrating because it was right after I started to figure out the fourth act. And those struggles went on for even longer than the fourth act struggles. To be fair, by the time that started happening, I was just so disheartened from this whole experience that I just could not mentally deal with playing the song. So I wasn't spending nearly as much time as I was previously, though I was revisiting it regularly. But yeah, it was just so depressing to just run after run after run, red flame that third act front end. And the reason for it is just because, it should be a very straightforward execution, just going red to green. The problem is the blue popo after that you have to fret so quickly after the green just made me utterly incapable of executing that properly for some reason, even though before, like I said, I was using that same execution before the fourth act troubles started to subside, and I was executing it properly fairly consistently. So something, that just happens with extended hit window. Something just breaks in my brain every now and then, and I just cannot overcome it. So I knew after a few days of that happening that I had to attack it from a new angle. And the new method that I initially came up with to deal with that was after pulling off to the red before the front end green, I would preemptively fret blue and then do extended hit window from there and then just strum the blue hammer on afterward. That wasn't quite ideal because it required an extra fret input, which that's not like a necessarily fast section, but it is fast enough to give you a lot of trouble trying to execute things that precisely. And the other big problem is that it requires a double strum input, which just makes executing extended hit window, again, especially under the speed of those notes, much harder. So I'm glad that this preemptively fretting green method worked out okay. Um, Although getting used to that execution was also really hard because I'm just not used to doing this kind of extended hit window execution, and I was practicing it on a couple other songs, and I'm pretty sure the problems I was having was just that I wasn't releasing the higher note fast enough. So even though this method ended up working, it required a lot of work to get to that point, but thankfully I never got back to that original problem of red flaming the front end. And honestly, just that, even if I was only hitting this front end 50% of the time, at the very least, if I wasn't just fucking red flaming it every time, it was like such a win. It felt like such a victory just to see that blue flame on the front end. And I was willing to fight through the inconsistency. And today, honestly, I had a very good success rate with hitting the front end and like pushing it fairly hard, probably upwards of 90%. So in the end, it looks like it paid off. But yeah, that fucking axe front end was one of the hardest stone walls I've ever come across in any of these grinds. So yeah, that's everything on the big three acts. The first act, there's not really much to say about it aside from the front end execution. Trying to use extended hit window on it is really awful, and it's just tight enough of an act to where it really requires you to like lock in for it and execute properly. Unlike the second act, for example, which is completely free, but just that amount of mental energy and frustration from when you miss it, the weight of that carries through the rest of the song. So yeah, that act is absolutely nothing compared to the last three, but like I said, it's just hard and frustrating enough, especially on the execution side on the front end, that it makes the entire experience much more frustrating than it would be without it. It's like how I described the first act in The Trooper, where it's not like a problem, but just having to deal with a potentially frustrating act like that at the very beginning of a song when you have the real heavy hitters afterward is just such a recipe for disaster. Anyway, that's about all I have to grieve about this. Honestly, I'm very surprised I was able to utilize this buffered whammy mechanic in this kind of a part, in this kind of a grind. I thought using this mechanic would be almost certainly limited to acts like the Red Lottery second act, where it's like very close to the beginning of the song, not much going on before it, not much going on after. And this so does not fit any of those criteria. But yeah, somehow it came together, and like I said, I'm almost positive I required that to pull off this last act. 374 fucking K, and like I said, this is pretty much human optimal. So, wow. Fuck yes. I'm pretty sure I am done for now with this entire last tier. So this is a great send-off for that.